it had been closed for over half a century following the premiere of The Lost Reel, a mysterious film directed by the enigmatic Victor Halloway. The audience from that fateful night never emerged, and the film itself vanished without a trace. All that remained was a theater frozen in time, sealed behind rusted gates, and a legend that whispered of a movie so powerful, it consumed those who watched it. Determined to uncover the truth, film student Daniel Reeves gathered a team: Sophie, a film historian, Lucas, a cinematographer, and Ben, a sound engineer. Armed with cameras and determination, they broke into the majestic theater one eerie autumn night, drawn by the legend of the lost reel. Inside, the theater was eerily intact, as if awaiting the return of its lost audience. Rows of plush red seats stretched toward the screen, dust floating in the dim moonlight that filtered through shattered windows. A faint hum of electricity buzzed through the air. As they explored, they found the locked projection room. Breaking it open, they discovered an old film reel, its label nearly faded but unmistakably the lost reel. Despite Sophie's warnings, Daniel insisted on playing it. They loaded the reel into the projector, and the screen flickered to life. The film depicted a grand gala, guests in opulent attire dancing beneath chandeliers of golden light. Yet, something was wrong. The dancers' faces were blank, their movements too synchronized, their eyes voids of darkness. Then, the dancers stopped. In eerie unison, they turned toward the screen and stared directly at the crew. The film crackled, distorting between frames of the past and reflections of Daniel and his friends in the theater seats. Their movements no longer matched reality. It was as if the film had begun absorbing them. A whisper slithered through the air: "The final act begins." Ben gasped as the projector's light stretched toward them, casting long, shifting shadows. Lucas reached for his camera, but his reflection in the film grinned a grotesque, twisted version of himself. Sophie tried to shut off the projector, but her hands passed through it like mist. The screen pulsed, expanding beyond its frame, consuming everything in its path. The last thing Daniel saw was Victor Halloway himself, standing at the edge of the ballroom, smiling. The next morning, the majestic theater remained silent. The only sign of disturbance was a single film reel, still spinning in the projection room. When played, the lost reel now had a new scene: 4 new dancers, their faces frozen in silent horror, moving in perfect harmony with the damned. To this day, the majestic theater remains sealed. But sometimes, on nights when the wind howls through Ravenwood, the projector flickers to life, playing the lost reel for an unseen audience, forever waiting for its next victims. Title: The Forgotten Film. In a quiet, forgotten corner of Los Angeles, an abandoned movie studio stood as a relic of Hollywood's golden age. Legends whispered that within its walls, a film had been shot that was never meant to be seen. Oliver Reed, an ambitious film student, had spent years researching lost films. When he stumbled upon a cryptic mention of The Silent Curse, a movie reportedly filmed in 1932 and never released, his curiosity became an obsession. The only record of the film's existence was a single photograph, a grainy black and white image of a terrified actress staring into the camera. Determined to uncover the truth, Oliver and his friends Mia, a cinematographer, Daniel, a sound designer, and Lisa, a horror enthusiast, broke into the abandoned studio one night. Armed with flashlights and cameras, they searched for any evidence of the forgotten film. After hours of scouring dusty reels and decayed scripts, they found it: a single canister labeled "Do Not Watch." Despite the warning, Oliver insisted they view it. They set up an old projector and watched as the flickering black and white images came to life. The film began as a standard silent horror movie. A woman, played by an unknown actress, wandered through a shadowy mansion. But something was off. Her expressions of fear seemed too real, her movements too desperate. As the film progressed, the actress looked directly at the camera, as if pleading for help. Then, without warning, the footage cut to black. A single phrase appeared on the screen: "She never left." At that moment, the projector shut off. A deafening silence filled the room. Lisa gasped, pointing at the screen. The image had changed. The actress was no longer on film, she was standing behind them. The group scrambled to turn on the lights, but when they did, the figure was gone. Their equipment malfunctioned. The cameras refused to record. The air turned frigid. A whisper echoed through the empty studio, "Finish the film." Terrified yet unable to resist, Oliver became obsessed with completing the silent curse. He convinced the others to help him shoot the missing scenes, believing it was the only way to break the curse. Using the original script they had found, they recreated the film's unfinished moments, casting Mia in the role of the trapped actress. As the days passed, Mia began to change. She spoke in a voice that wasn't hers, recited lines that weren't in the script. Shadows flickered in places with no light source. Daniel's audio recordings captured faint screams, ones that none of them had heard while filming. On the final night of production, they gathered in the same abandoned studio where the original film had been shot. Oliver directed Mia through the final scene, her expression mirroring that of the doomed actress from 1932. As she delivered her last line, the studio's power surged. The camera recorded on its own. A scream pierced the darkness. When the lights returned, Mia was gone. The footage, when played back, showed something impossible: Mia looking into the camera, her eyes filled with terror, before vanishing into the film itself. Oliver, Daniel, and Lisa searched for her, but she was nowhere to be found. The authorities dismissed the case as an unexplained disappearance. Heartbroken and guilt-ridden, Oliver abandoned filmmaking. Months later, an indie film festival received an anonymous submission: an old silent horror film titled The Silent Curse. Mia was the lead actress. And somewhere, the film waited for its next victim. The Silver Screen Curse. Deep within the heart of Evervale stood the infamous Silvergate Cinema, a relic of Hollywood's golden era. Once a grand establishment that hosted legendary premieres, it had been shut down mysteriously after the screening of The Silver Screen Curse, a film that was never officially released. On the night of its first and only showing, the entire audience vanished, leaving behind only overturned seats, abandoned coats, and a flickering projector playing a blank reel. For decades, the theater remained locked, its secrets buried beneath dust and decay. Some believed the film had been cursed, others whispered that its director, Elias Vance, had discovered something unnatural and embedded it within the celluloid. No one dared enter, until one stormy night, when a group of ambitious film students set out to uncover the truth. Lena Carter, an aspiring director, led the expedition, accompanied by her classmates Mark, a cinematographer, Nina, a sound engineer, and Theo, a skeptic with a fascination for the supernatural. Armed with cameras and recording equipment, they entered the decaying Silvergate Cinema, determined to document their findings. The air was thick with dust, and the scent of aged film stock lingered. Rows of seats stretched toward a screen veiled in cobwebs, and the massive chandeliers hung eerily still. The projector room remained untouched, its reels frozen in time. As they explored, they found an old film canister marked The Silver Screen Curse. Despite Theo's hesitation, Lena insisted on playing it. They loaded the reel, and the projector sputtered to life. The film revealed a black and white masquerade ball, where elegantly dressed guests twirled beneath an ornate chandelier. But something was off. Their movements were too fluid, their faces obscured behind eerily expressionless masks. Then, one by one, the dancers stopped. The camera in the film panned toward the audience, except it wasn't the original audience. It was them. Mark swore under his breath as their reflections appeared on the screen, sitting in the very seats they occupied. Nina's microphone picked up faint whispers, growing louder with every frame. The figures on the screen began stepping closer, their masks tilting unnaturally. The whispers became a single, chilling phrase: "Join the performance." The projector's light expanded, stretching toward them like ghostly fingers. Theo grabbed Lena's arm, but their surroundings blurred the theater, dissolving into the ballroom from the film. The masked dancers turned toward them, reaching out with gloved hands. Lena gasped as she saw him, Elias Vance, standing at the center, his hollow eyes gleaming with sinister delight. He raised a hand, and the figures closed in. The next morning, the Silvergate Cinema remained silent, its doors still locked from the outside. But inside, the projector continued to hum, playing the silver screen curse for an empty hall. Now, the film had a new scene, 4 new masked figures, frozen in mid-dance, trapped within the frame, their eyes pleading for escape. To this day, no one dares enter the Silvergate Cinema. But sometimes, on stormy nights, passers-by claim they hear the faint echo of an old projector rolling, playing a cursed film for an unseen audience always searching for its next stars. The Forgotten Film. In the heart of Ravenshire, where history whispered through cobblestone streets, there stood the abandoned Starlight Theatre. Once a beacon for cinema lovers, it had closed mysteriously after a fateful premiere in 1958. That night, every audience member vanished without a trace, and the film The Forgotten Film was never seen again. For decades, rumors swirled. Some claimed the film was cursed, while others believed its director, Henry Whitmore, had uncovered a terrifying truth hidden within its frames. The theater remained untouched, its grand doors sealed, its secrets locked away. Aspiring filmmaker Daniel Hayes had been obsessed with the legend for years. Determined to unravel the mystery, he convinced his closest friends, Emma, a historian, Lucas, a cinematographer, and Sophie, a sound technician, to join him in breaking into the Starlight Theatre on the anniversary of its closure. The theater was eerily pristine, as if time had stopped the moment it was abandoned. Dust clung to the velvet seats, and the massive chandelier hung motionless above. The smell of aged film lingered in the air. In the old projection room, they discovered a single reel labeled The Forgotten Film. Despite Emma's reservations, Daniel insisted they screen it. They loaded the film, and the projector whirred to life. The screen flickered, revealing a black and white masquerade ball. Elegant guests danced beneath chandeliers, their faces obscured by intricate masks. Yet, something felt wrong. Their movements were too synchronized, their expressions unnervingly still. Then, as the camera in the film panned across the ballroom, the masked figures stopped dancing. Slowly, they turned to face the screen, as if aware they were being watched. A chilling whisper filled the room, "Welcome back." Lucas cursed as their reflections appeared on the screen. Not just reflections, distorted, eerie versions of themselves. Sophie yelped as her microphone picked up a rising hum, growing into a symphony of voices. The figures in the film stepped closer, their masks tilting at unnatural angles. The screen pulsed, its light stretching toward them like spectral tendrils. The theater around them dissolved, morphing into the ballroom from the film. The masked dancers reached out with gloved hands. Daniel turned, but there was no escape. At the center of the ballroom stood Henry Whitmore, smiling. The next morning, the Starlight Theatre remained undisturbed. But inside, the projector still played The Forgotten Film. Now, the film had a new scene, 4 new masked figures, their faces frozen in silent horror, forever trapped within its frames. To this day, no one dares enter the Starlight Theatre. But sometimes, on quiet nights, the faint hum of a projector can be heard, playing to an unseen audience always waiting for new stars to join the cast.